Hi and welcome to Valhallagames podcasts. I'm Rex, I'm one half of Valhallagames, and Dan, my brother, is the other. Hi Dan, how you going? No, nothing from Dan. Dan has decided after 15 years in the army to go back to boot camp to become an officer. So Dan won't be on the podcast very much for the next little while. So I'm looking for some new friends. So I'll be doing interviews and looking for interesting people to talk to. The first in that series is Paul from WWII Buildings. Now, Paul is a prolific 3D terrain model maker who makes and sells the STL files for your 3D printing pleasure, mostly via Kickstarter, but also on his website as well. And I talked to Paul about scale, the complexities of printing in 3D, and get a bit of an insight into his process. So sit back, enjoy with me as we chat to Paul, and I will talk to you soon. Welcome back to Valhalla Games. Now, I've got a special guest tonight, and that guest is Paul from WWII Buildings. Now, Paul is a 3D building and model designer, and mighty fine his stuff is too. Hi, Paul. How are you going tonight?
I'm all right, thank you.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself. I've already given people a bit of an idea of what you do, but tell us a little bit about yourself personally, and tell us if you're a wargamer. Do you game? Do you design buildings? Have you got plans for games? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Aspiring wargamer, as in I want to get into World War II. I've got a shed load, literally a shed load of stuff ready to go, but COVID shut all that down. But basically, I've been a terrain maker. I was originally bought miniatures, painted miniatures. Life got in the way of that. Sold off a collection of, as you can imagine, back then, I'm 55 now, it was Rackham's Games Workshop, all the old metal stuff, sold it all off at a stupid cheap price. And a good 10 years before I came back to the hobby, and when I came back, I decided to make terrain. I used to go around my mates' houses and to clubs and watch them play, and some of the terrain was nothing more than a breakfast packet or something just to represent what it was. And I thought, you spent 14 million hours painting up this army to a beautiful looking thing, and you're playing on a crisp packet. So I thought I'll change that side of things. I'll offer something that brings realism to the whole experience, not just the actual figures themselves. So that's where it was. It was born from there, and it's carried on from there, really.
So I can empathise with you there, because Dan, the other half of Valhalla Games, Dan is the terrain guy, and he has all the most beautiful terrain. And then he comes to visit me in Australia, and we have crisp packets and rolled up pieces of rag underneath the battle mat and all that sort of thing. And it's nowhere near as lovely as what I'd like it to be. But I believe all that's going to change soon, because now I've found WWII Wargames, and I've got a 3D printer, and I'm on my way.
You've arrived.
I've arrived. So, how did you get started with this then? Did you jump straight in? Do you have a background in CAD CAM? What made you decide that you were going to get into something so crazy as 3D building design?
If you give me something to draw, I can copy it and I can draw it to a reasonable standard that I'm happy with. But if you ask me to draw, say, a dog or a cat, I can't draw them. But if you ask me to make something from out of my head, I can make it. So it was sort of born from that. So I started out making buildings by hand, bits of card, bits of plastic card, foam board, you name it. Anything I could find that represents something, I'd make it. Take me hours and days and months to make a single building sometimes. but I used to enjoy doing it, and that's how it started. I did try and sell a few along the way, but it was more the pleasure of doing it and individual things. The best example I can give you is Stalingrad train station, which I made 3 or 4 times, made a mould of it, which destroys the original. But never really, there wasn't really a time to make a commercial side of it. The actual designing on computer, I started doing way before you was able to print them, and when printers were silly price anyway, £1 million for a printer, or not quite that much, but you can understand printers were out of the everyday reach of people as a hobby. And then me and my partner at the time, she wanted to start a business, so we actually bought a repossessed house, 6-bedroom thing, massive, but she wanted to run a business from it. And while I was preparing for that and trying to save money to get the business started, there was not much for me to do, but we had lodgers in the rooms, and one of the lodgers turned out to be a CAD man, and I was downstairs working on my little model buildings, and he'd come and look at them, and he came down one day, and this gives you a date of when it must have happened, and he said, you need to go online and Google's just brought out a thing called SketchUp. That'd be ideal for you, because he worked in SolidWorks, and and I just didn't want or didn't have the inclination to learn it, to be honest with you, if I'm being lazy on that side. He said, look at Google. He said, go and look at Google SketchUp, download that and have a go. And that's what's brought me to where we are now. A lot of people use Blender, which I am learning actually, and Fusion. But for what I do, Google SketchUp is a magnificent tool and suits me fine. So yeah, that's where we are now. Originally, when I started, you couldn't put them into the STL. I didn't know what an STL was. You couldn't format an STL. So I just did designs, hoping that one day I would be able to. And and that's arrived at where we are now.
Well, that's very forward-looking, isn't it? Did you ever catch up with that guy again? Does he know that you've gone on to be a world-famous 3D print design guy?
His name's Darren Simon. He's on Facebook, but he's one of the people who've been on Facebook and not deleted themselves, but never use it no more. So, despite the fact that I've sent him several of those, and he lived not too far away from me, that once COVID done, I could go and shake his hand and thank him, but he never answers, so I presume he never uses Facebook no more, which is a shame. But I'd love to meet him and tell him where I've gone from where he was in them days. Probably what you're talking about, 10, 12 years ago now.
Oh, that's great. That's really interesting, and really forward thinking. Now that printers are affordable for anybody who sort of wants one.
Totally accidental and completely hopeful at the time, I assure you. No real plan in it, just a hope.
Fantastic. So you've made a couple of buildings, 1 or 2,
3 or 4.
3 or 4, maybe more than that even. 3D buildings and other 3D models, not just buildings.
Yeah.
And you've run a couple of Kickstarters. How did you get going with the Kickstarter thing? Is that how you started? Like once you sort of decided it was going to be a business type of arrangement?
Here is where I do my biggest shout out ever. This guy, I could never thank enough, no matter how much I tried. He's over there in Australia. Ken Cole. I think he's Adelaide way, but I'm probably getting that wrong. I've got an open invite to go and visit him, which I will possibly take up if I can bear the thought of being on an aeroplane for that long. But basically, he bought some resin stuff off me that was horrible. The casts were okay, but resin leaks, and it was, when it got to him, it was horrible anyway. But instead of shouting at me, he talked to me, and we got talking. And over time, we talked a lot. And when the time came, he sent me a link to a Kickstarter, a board game called Nemesis, I think. I'm sure it's Nemesis. I nearly bought it. It was on £3 million in Kickstarter. The backing was up to £3 million. Now I know they've got a team behind it and overheads and everything, but I just thought maybe Kickstarter's a way in for me to start off, get people noticing me, get myself out there. But I had no clue how to do it. And he stepped on board and he said, you do the designs, I'll organise your Kickstarter for you. But he wouldn't take no payment. And we did about the first 4 Kickstarters. I couldn't have done without him. And the guy wouldn't take no payment or nothing. So eventually I forced a printer. I had him a printer shipped out there. He agreed to let me buy him a printer, CR10 it was, and had it shipped out to him. And that's the only reward he's ever took. Although I insist he has permanent access to any file I ever do. So I can never be thankful enough to Ken Cole. I did meet him just before COVID. He was working in the UK and we met up. I bought him a meal, but it just don't seem enough, to be honest with you. But that's how I started. That's how it happened. And it's gone on from there.
Well, wargaming in Australia is a pretty small group. A lot of people know a lot of people. Maybe one day I'll meet him, and maybe he'll have a really nice set of terrain, I would say, by now. What do you think?
I'll definitely steer him to look at this, and I know he'll comment.
Fantastic. So you run a couple of Kickstarters. I just wanted to go through them. It's kind of a long list. It starts out with WoW in space. A bridge to WoW, as in a play on the words "a bridge too far."
Yeah.
So that's a World War II one. Apocalypse WoW, great, another play on words. Battle of Berlin, and there's a lot of models in that set too, and they're big models too. Fantasy WoW, space battles, WoW buildings, further adventures in space. Alienations, First Contact, WoW buildings, sci-fi, and it just goes on and on. Now we're getting serious. WoW buildings, war across Europe, urban warfare, again, World War II, WoW in space, the re-entry zone, pushing on past D-Day. I'm not even got to the top of the list yet. So there's a lot of Kickstarters. You have done a lot of models.
It just adds up. Until I look myself, I don't realise how many I've done. And there's always an option in the latest Kickstarter to buy the whole entire back catalogue. And when it comes to sending the links for them, that's when I realise, oh my God. So I have a draft email now with all the links on so that I don't have to go and click on the link and copy it and click on it and copy it for 15, 17, 18, whatever there is Kickstarters now, because it grows on you without you realising it. And it's only when you said the list there that I realised I did 4 sci-fis in a row. And I can remember that when I was doing it, I love doing sci-fis. I don't like playing it, but I love doing it. I didn't think I'd go back to World War II or anything then, because I was quite happy doing sci-fis. But with me, it's about variety. So I'd done the 4 sci-fis and I thought, World War II time, let's go back to that. I've dotted in a couple of fantasies, but fantasies, the market's absolutely flooded. You can get your kicks from all sorts of other fantasy, so I won't go there too often. Apocalypse, I like Apocalypse, but I've covered it a lot now. So it will be World War II and some more sci-fi along the way, mostly.
Fantastic. And they're really generous sets too. The sets have got so many models in them. I mean, if I draw my attention to one of my favorites, which is WoW Buildings, A World in Ruins.
Yeah.
That's a big Kickstarter. If I start scrolling down, I see a lot of buildings, a lot of buildings. Not only that, I see Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
One of my favorite World War II movies of all time. And there's the whole street of Rommel with the bridge and the blowing up buildings. And it's just really beautiful stuff. Give us a bit of an insight into your process. So you get, I guess, the kernel of an idea. But how do you go about choosing a theme? How do you sort of decide, well, this one's going to be about ruined buildings, including Saving Private Ryan, or that one's going to be about something else? Give us the I guess the insight into how you picked the current with this one that I'm talking about now.
There isn't a massive thought process at the start of a Kickstarter for me. I have an idea, as in sci-fi, this one, or it's World War II, this one, or it's apocalypse, this one, and that's how it starts. And then I try and put an idea together of what area I'm going to cover. Now, the World War IIers, they're spreading across Europe, and they're a natural progression of spreading from one to another. The sci-fis, it's different themed ideas, but I go into most ones with an idea of what's going to be included. Say World in Ruins, the main part of that turned out to be Saving Private Ryan. It wasn't even going to be it wasn't even a thought, to be honest with you, when that started. It was Monte Cassino. Monte Cassino was the basis of that, but what I realised was Monte Cassino was a massive print. No one is going to print it unless they're mad. So there are a couple of mad ones out there, people out there. I'm one of them. So it was never going to be a massively printed set on its own. Somebody, and I honestly don't know who it was, mentioned Private Ryan, and all of a sudden that idea clicked in. I thought, right, that's having it. We're having that in this set. Rommel is being included in this. And that's how it came in there. It wasn't planned beforehand. And if I went back now, it would probably be a Kickstarter on its own, but it's not. And hence Kelly's Heroes is coming, and that will be a Kickstarter on its own. So that's how Private Ryan got included in that. And once I did one piece of Private Ryan, I had to do the whole town. That's how I work. My Kickstarter theory when I started was, for your hard-earned dollar, you get a great big bag full of goodies that you'll always remember. And the same with a seller's license. I wasn't going to say, here's a seller's license, but I want your money this year and I want some money off you next year, and you've got to renew it. No, you buy the seller's license, you get the seller's license, and it's yours. And that's the two themes I worked on. So you get a great big bag of goodies for your money, and you guys who's selling, once you've bought that license, you don't need to keep coming back to me and giving you money. You make off whatever your money you can by selling the stuff, and good luck to you. As long as you don't sell the actual file, you can sell in whatever format you want to make your money, and you don't have to come and renew that license. It's forever. And that's the ideas I worked on from the start.
That's fantastic. Although, did you just drop the words Kelly's Heroes there and just quietly?
I didn't notice. It just came out of my mouth. I didn't notice.
Because you can't do that sort of thing, especially on valhallagames podcast.
Clever marketing ploys and all that. You know, I've watched these TV interviews where they drop their book names, and I accidentally dropped Kelly's Heroes in the mix there.
It was tough to hear anything you said after you said the words Kelly's Heroes, but I think I managed. I'm just going to put that one aside for the moment. I want to come back to that, okay?
Yeah, no problem.
We won't forget. We will come back to it. In terms of the Kickstarter process, so that's the theory, and as you've said, you get requests from other people, which is very generous, in terms of what they want to see in it, and it kind of builds and grows and that from there. And as you've said,
in just 2 seconds, that's the one thing I just missed out. That was the other key thing of my Kickstarters that wasn't meant to be. I've done a load of designs. Here's what you get. Thank you for your money, and here's what you get. My Kickstarters are always, tell me what you want. I've got a theme here. This is what we're including, but there's room for more. But you tell me what you want. I'm not going to tell you what you're going to get. You tell me what you want me to give you, and that's how we've gone along as we've progressed. Always had back of input all the way along.
That's fantastic. It's really engaging too with the people that are actually backing it.
That's where I've struggled a little bit with the latest one, because the latest one's all inclusive, no stretch goals, a couple of bonus goals, but all no stretch goals. Just this is I have done it this time. This is what you get, because there's such a lot in it, and And I thought rather than just add them as stretch goals, because normally I'd have added all those things as stretch goals, but I just thought, wham bam, let's get this one in it. This is what you get, as in massive, great big bag full of stuff there. Enjoy. I'll do a couple of bonus, and the bonus ones, to be honest with you, there's been a 5,000 and a 10,000, and there'll be one for 15, which I don't know if we'll make, but I'll you know me, I'll add it anyway. They were what people asked for. Someone this morning just sent me a note mentioning some. I can't remember what build it is now. One of the other generals' HQs, which will be the one I include as well.
And that current one that's running is the American Civil War.
Yeah.
Now, all of these things will be in the show notes. I'm going to put a link to both the current Kickstarter, the old Kickstarters, the website, your contact details, and everything that's there in case people want to go and check it out, because I'm pretty sure they will after they hear this. But the American Civil War, let's divert down that way a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I want to come back after that to your actual process, how you go about the building. But let's go American Civil War for a minute. So let me refer to the website here. I'll open it up and I'll scroll down a bit. And there's a bit of scrolling.
Just a bit.
There's a lot of scrolling. There is a massive amount of stuff in this Kickstarter. So it starts off
a lot
really.
Of it works out, a lot of it works out that if you sit and look at it, it's about £1 per design, which a bit of a bargain, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. So it starts off with the Alamo. Now, I have to admit, I'm not a huge American Civil War guy. I love to watch the history. I watched a couple of documentaries, but I just don't know that much about it. But this Alamo, is this a 6x4? This is pretty much the first thing on the list, and it's only one thing of 30 or 40 pieces. Is this like a whole 6x4 table full of terrain just in one model?
I can't
obviously split up, but
I can't just do the church and a couple of outbuildings to represent. I have to do the whole lot, and then it's up to the printer what they print. So basically, yes, you can do the whole Alamo. The walls are generic; you can set them up how you want, but the sets of buildings on there are the complete set, as far as I can see, of what was in the Alamo. So you can do a complete Alamo setup there if you want to. So yeah, you would be looking at quite a big board.
And do you want to take us through a bit of a list of some of the highlights of here? You'll have to talk fast because there is so many pieces in this set. I just can't believe it. But take us through a list of some of the things that you particularly like and would like to emphasize.
As a common theme, a train is always included, no matter what genre we're in. Got quite a few different styles of trains and carriages. I mean, I've been asked for cattle carts to be added in this one, but they've been the others. So I'll just be repeating what I've done or taking that design out of this and putting it in that one and putting it in this one. So if you look through the others, and they'll be on the website soon as well, all I've done a number of different types of carts. So in this one, we've done the carriage, the train, and the tender, and an artillery piece and a flatbed, which was what were asked for. Again, they were asked for by people, so they were included. So the train's a nice one. Print's nice as well.
It's really nice. Yeah, it's a beautiful one. It's got the cow catcher, big pointy thing on the front, and it's really nice. All right, what else have we got?
Something I didn't realise, and I'll point out now, that it's popular. I didn't realise that dice rollers were popular. So I'm going to try and add a dice roller into every Kickstarter from now on. And then this one, you get the water tower. I haven't tested this yet, although I know it'll work because it's a similar design to one I've done before. The idea is you put the dice in the top, and as it comes out, it bangs on the struts on the bottom, and that tosses the dice around on the table. So that's included, and there'll be a dice roller for all buildings now on the. I'll tell you the Kelly's Heroes one in a minute. Another sneaky link for that part, but yeah, scrolling down again, like you say, there's so many. I quite like the generic Western stuff, and there's some other big plantation buildings in there as well. Is there anything that stands out for you that you want to? You could just scroll down, can't you, and just lose yourself in the scrolling. The little piggies in the pigsty, they were just put in there to show they were piggies. I've took a lot of stick for them, but they were just some piggies off Thingiverse. So I just stuck in there to show that it was a pigsty. So I will actually put them in, but they're not mine.
Okay, no worries. So, all right, I don't think you're doing a good job at this at all. I'm going to go through. You ready?
Terrible. So yeah, you go through.
Okay, the Birdcage Theatre.
Yeah.
What a fantastic frontage on that one. Broden House, Prairie Grove, an amazing building with sidings and big chimneys and Burnside Bridge, artillery pack. It looks like maybe 5 or 6 different
I think there's 5,
artillery pieces.
1, 2, 3,
it might
4.
be 4. Yeah,
5. Yeah.
City buildings. It's like a generic. So along with the whole American Civil War thing, you've also got a whole lot of generic Western buildings. So anybody who plays a Western shoot 'em up, gun drawing Western games will feel absolutely right at home.
And even train set people. I always say Hornby, but Hornby's probably a tiny company now, or it doesn't even exist. But the people who have trains, they quite like the intact buildings as well. So it even suits across genre and into them. It's something I would look to in the future to actually doing, but time consuming. Time is never my. I'm actually a solo. I sit here doing it all on my own. My son helps me do the print side. Well, he is the print side. I don't like the print side. But all these designs, they're just me doing them. So I can't do everything. I want to do everything, and I'll try and do everything, but ultimately somewhere along the lines I won't.
I think you've had a pretty good go at it. The warehouse, the Alcorn Tavern, the Western Hotel, the sheriff's thing, complete with removable wall section for those breakout.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed
scenarios.
doing that. I had the idea in my head of a jailbreak, and there's actually 2 sides at walls that'll. I've tried to design. They'll click in and click out. Out for them walls. I'll have to test print that one. But I quite like
fantastic.
Quite like the idea of that one.
The Ironclad, so that's the big steel reinforced ship. Lee and Gordon's Mill, Gettysburg HQ. I know some of these from Ken Burns' documentaries.
Mm.
They look just like it, just like the real thing. Western Miners Guild Building, paddle steamer, Western Stables, wooden covered bridge 1, wooden covered bridge 2. It just goes on and on and on.
I'd forgotten I'd done some of these myself. The paddle steamer, I'd forgot I'd even done that.
The church, a saloon, the pigsty, complete with slightly dodgy pigs, which is excellent.
Included
another saloon. So all of this for the general Joe with the printer, £40 sterling. That is incredibly good value. There must be. I'd hate to even count. There must be. I don't know.
Up towards 50.
Yeah, I was going to say about 60. Yeah, that's a lot of models. So
and if you include the Alamo, could be split down as well. You know, you're looking at less than £1 for a design, which is a bit crazy, really. But there you go. Enjoy it. Very
generous, and I will be definitely. I've already bought some of your stuff, and I'm going to be buying some more for sure. So that's the $40 for the infantryman level for pledge, but then and we've got some catch up ones which allow you to get a previous
again
as well.
They're asked for. They're not something I used to include because I didn't even think about them, to be honest with you. But that's another thing from input from the actual people asking me to do catch ups and stuff, and I do them at a price in there, and afterwards obviously it'd be more for the. So if you buy 2 Kickstarters, In this, it's £80, is it? Whereas normally it'd be a little bit more than that. So you know, the Kickstarters
right,
are the bargain times, and that's why afterwards I do have to like run that offer for a late backers for about a month to 6 weeks, and then I have to take it away because basically they're crazy prices.
Yeah. And then I can see, so we already briefly discussed sellers, so you can buy the license, which allows you to sell the 3D prints. Obviously not the STL files, but that allows you to print off as many as you want for as long as you want, sell them, create a little business for yourself. And is there something specific for the sellers that's unique to sellers?
Yeah, it's something I did in. I've often been asked before, have you got a certificate or something I can put to say I'm a seller? And basically, if I did a Word document, anyone could copy that and put it on there. So that I always said no. If you ever get any questions about you're a seller, send them to me and I'll confirm it. And that's how it worked. It's not happened, to be honest with you. But in the last a eureka moment, as you might call it, in the last one I did the markers, and I suddenly thought, I'm only going to give them the sellers. You sellers guys, you're going to get these. And from now on, in every Kickstarter, the seller, with the people with the seller's license, will get an exclusive that's for that Kickstarter. So unless they give it away to somebody, the file that is, which I hope they don't, but unless they did that, they're the only people who will have that for sale. So if you go to someone's web shop and say, have you got them markers? Sorry, no, I haven't got a seller. And that's because they haven't got a seller's license. So if they're a seller, they'll have them markers, and they're the only people who will. In this one, I can't remember what it is. I'm trying to scroll down now to see what it is. But yeah, from now on, in every single Kickstarter, no matter what it is, there will be at least one design or type of item that will be purely for the seller only, to mark out that they bought the seller's thing, and it's something that only they'll have. And I can't find it in this one, but it is there somewhere.
That's a great idea. So we'll talk about the Kickstarter and the closure date and that sort of thing a little bit later towards the end. But I just wanted to loop back now and talk about your process. So we've talked about the theme, finding the theme. And then once you get a theme, like say, for example, the Saving Private Ryan stuff, the bits and pieces that you get with that, as well as all the other stuff for the ruined buildings. Did you start researching? Like, how do you actually work out what you're going to do and your sizings and like your base material? How do you find that?
Great for Mr. Google. I'll watch documentaries. If there's a film I can watch, I'll actually print screen from the film and save the actual pictures I need to. I did that a lot with Private Ryan. There's quite a bit of pictures out there for you to collect off Google to get different angles, but even then the film, freezing the film and taking a screenshot of particular points of the film just gave me that little bit of extra angle to get things just right. I'm not a rivet counter. I'm not. I don't measure things. I don't try and get buildings to their nth degree of measurement. I just represent that building, and as we'll probably talk about in the way I scale things later on, it's a representation of that building as best as I can do it without measuring the thing and getting everything absolutely. Like I say, I'm not a rivet counter. Simple as that. So that's my process. I get a load of pictures together. I get an idea of what I want to do. And then I start doing, I do one building first, and say it's for the Private Ryan town, for example. The first building I did was I think it's on the thing, it would be the northeast one, which is the arched building we're in. That was the one I did first. And everything else worked off that. I got that right, how I wanted it. And every other building came off that, including the bridge.
So we know that there's issues with scale and wargaming. Yeah. Shouldn't be, but there is. So you've got we play a lot of bolt action or or even if it's not playing bolt action, it's using Warlord Games miniatures.
Yeah.
And so they are plus size 28 millimeter miniatures. They're not really 156, which is what they should be. More like sort of a Perry's kind of, and some other manufacturers are more true scale. How do you work your scales? How do you work out whether it's going to be, this size or bigger, or do you have a process for that?
I've had three, not certainly not arguments, because it never comes to an argument. I don't argue over things. I don't want to. But there's been three debates in the past I've had. One is, like you say, the scale size. One is windows in, windows out, and the other one is internals. Now, these are the rules I set myself about 2 Kickstarters ago. I've had to set my own rules in stone. I won't move from them, not because I'm stubborn, because I have been moving from them in the past, and it's gone from one to the other, one to the other. So now these rules are set in stone. I don't put any window glass in the windows. All windows are windowless, except for if they needed them, like a spaceship or something that needed the glass in. They won't have glass in them. Broken panes of glass, yes, but actual panes of glass, no. It's actually easier for me to leave them out. The only reason I had them in originally is because it helped the print with stringing, but most people want them out, so they're out now. That's all there is to it. Internals, the bolt action guys like the internals, so that was Alexa. So I do internals now, and how I do the internals is you get a basic internal. I do inner walls, staircases, no real detail. That's for you to add yourself. And a separate printing up, anything above the upper floor, the ground floor, sorry, is a separate print. So you guys, or the guys on 20mm or 15mm who don't want or don't need them, they don't have to print that piece. The bolt action guys, who I know that they're playing inside interiors, they can print it if they want to. So it's a separate piece and it's there. So that will be on every building from now on. As you've seen in the latest one, if you scroll down, all the buildings have got interiors. There's no detail to just interiors to represent. And the other one, like you say, is scale. And scale's been the biggest one because, like you say, that the different companies do different types, including Games Workshop is Super 32 Epic or whatever it's called. And then you've just mentioned the bolt action ones. So I had to settle on a scale, and it's then down to the printer to up a few percent or down a few percent. And what I worked on was my doors for 28mm scale. Now 28mm, I know it's not a scale, it's a size, but that's how I work. 28mm scale, because I have to work within millimeters. That's so I can't work in inches. A 32mm high door. That allows for a couple of millimeters of base, and the figure at 28mm and a couple of millimeters above. So 32mm, that leaves it 24mm. If I scale down to how I work it, 75% gives a 24mm high door for a 20mm scale figure. And I think it works out to 18 or 19 if you go down to 50% for a 15mm figure. Now, like I say, you can go to 54% or 78, 76% to give slightly bigger doors, or 1.2, 1.3, 1.4 to give yourself a 34. That's down to your choice. But I had to find somewhere else. I'll just be jiggling about all over the place. And the one thing I don't ever take into account is the width of a base. The width of a miniature represents the person. He would be the first. We don't walk around on bases. I understand why bases are there, but you don't walk around on a base. You don't walk around with your hands spread out wide to walk through a door. It just distorts the whole model completely if you fit doors to base sizes. It will make everything 75% bigger and look all out of proportion. So I don't even try and go there. So every building I do, I start with the door. So I'll make the door. I'll put the door in place. I'll get the shape of the build. So say for an house, oblong shape of an house, and I'll put the door on it. When I'm happy with how the door fits, everything else I do is scaled from the door. So the windows are sort of 3/4 the height of the door or half the height or whatever they are. So everything as you see scales from what the door is. And that's basically my basic set of rules of how I work. I can't change them because I have been changing them. So I've had to settle on this one. And like I say, it's not a problem because if you want your door 34 millimeters, just up the scale a little bit. If you want it smaller, down the scale a bit.
Oh, that's really interesting. And a compliment to you. I think your sizes are absolutely right on from what I've seen. I bought City Centre, I think it is, Town Centre, one of the World War II ones, and I've been printing that out feverishly, watching it grow alongside me. So I'd have something to be able to speak sensibly to you with this interview. So, and the size of it is absolutely right on. Dan and I have struggled with this. We did a whole podcast on scale.
Yeah.
And we both went into it with one idea, and I think we came out of it with two different ideas, which weren't the ideas we went into it with. And it was a bit frustrating. So then we went and...
It's a very individual thing. It's a bit like beauty in the eye of the beholder. Scale is down to individual. So you'll never satisfy everybody.
Yeah, no, I think you're doing well. We thought, I think we need the scale. We need the buildings to be bigger. So I made all the buildings bigger for the latest foam buildings that I made.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were really just a little bit too big.
Yeah.
So I think you're right on the money. So fantastic. Good job.
Thank you.
So you're creating it obviously in software. Presumably you're starting from the bottom up, and then you're building out the main part of the structure in software. And then I'm looking at this Borden House, Prairie Grove building in the latest Kickstarter with all its sidings on it. Now, I'm not sure if that translates to different countries. We all call them different things, but weatherboards or sidings or timber boards basically along the side of the entire building. So if I can describe this building, firstly, it's amazing. But it's got the timber sidings along it, and then a front balcony kind of thing, and beautiful windows. And they're actually, I believe they're called double hung windows, where the one sash slides in front of the other hash.
I'll show my architectural expertise now. So yes, I'll agree to that on the windows. I don't know, to be honest with you. And
the dormer windows and that, I'm finding that the more I wargame, the better I have to be at being architecturally savvy. But I don't know how we're going, but I'm certainly enjoying it. They are amazing buildings. This building is just incredible. It's even got a texture on the siding boards.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about doing that?
I've actually got a mate. You just brought it back to it. I've got a mate. You got these lifelong mates that you don't see for years, but when you see them, it's like yesterday. I've got a lifelong mate. He's actually an architect, and he has no idea what I do. So I'll have to tell him one day.
You'll have to surprise him. He will be surprised.
He'll get technical on me, and I won't have a clue what he's on about. Right, with me on a building, say that one. I do the skeleton first. So I get the shape, the oblong shape, cut the doors, cut the windows. I don't put the roof on till last, although I do the actual, obviously, the gable ends and all that sort of stuff. Chimneys, very last. Windows, it's probably the only thing I'm OCD about. I don't think I've ever copied and pasted a window from one building to the next. So even if I put that same window frameage in the next building I did, I'd still redo it all from the start. I don't know why. I have to make, if them ones that slide up and down, they have to look like they slide up and down. I can't just put the squares in and say that's your windows. So even from the inside, it'll look like it slides up and down. So a strange thing with the windows. Same with the doors. I always sit down and do it. That door there was obviously based on the door that was in the building. But when you've got like a terrace house door, general door, I always go to great lengths to make it not look like the last door I did, which is ridiculous in some cases. Just copy and paste it, I think to myself. But on the detailing, on the if you get say a fantasy piece of wood, there's intricate carving lines in the wood for the grainage, and I think that looks great for fantasy. But it's not how things look. If you look at a wood panel outside on your fencing, I'm looking out the window now. You can see the paneling, you can see the grain in the wood, but it's not like a big indented thing. It's just texture in the wood. So with SketchUp, there's this wonderful tool you can download called Erode that when you get your surface, so them wooden planks are just long, oblong, square shapes or whatever. And the surfaces, you can erode the whole thing, a bit of the thing, or just one surface. And all I do is on a low setting, erode the surface to give you, as you see now, a slightly contoured and slightly textured look, with two good reasons for it. One, it looks realistic when it's printed. It paints nice. The other one is it doesn't kill your print times, and it doesn't start using up a whole load of more filament. I would say resin again there, but filament. So it meets my needs. It gives me the look I want without putting hours and hours on your print time.
Yeah, it looks amazing. It's a really, really nice job. I'll put links to all of these in the show notes.
Yeah.
And just before we go at the end, I'll get you to give us a how do we find you session, and you can tell us about all your web links and
no problem.
And the Kickstarters and everything else. So once you've got this done, I mean, does this take you a long time to do a building like this? Like, does it? Like, if I take, for example, there's one which is a hotel somewhere here, if I can scroll to it. Yeah, Western Hotel, and it's a main frame of a building with some dormer windows, and it's got a wraparound wooden deck.
The one that's been printed, yeah.
One's been printed. It's very, very nice too. Does it take you forever? I mean, I've done a little bit of work in Tinkercad just to fix a few models that needed to be fixed. Obviously incredibly basic stuff, but I'm imagining from that to do something like this would still take you, even though you've got the super duper software, would take you forever.
It can do. It depends on that build in particular. Took a while because of it's not like just your square with your triangle roof and your frontage on. There's the dormer style sides bits and what have you. So it takes longer when you're starting to add the detail on. So you get the basic shape that's quite quickly going up. It's only then that you start adding the wooden side to it and the plankage on there with the dormer tops. It is a little bit of copy and pasting going on to save you time, but ultimately, yeah, it is time consuming depending on how much the wooden buildings like these take a lot longer, because, as you see, there's a lot of detail to be added onto the surface. If you've got a building that's a rendered surface, so it's quite flat on the outside with a little bit of, obviously a lot less time, you can knock up quite quick. But when you come into this, if that took me a day to do, 75% of that would be adding the detail at the end of it.
Right. Okay. So the detailing is really the bulk of it.
Brickwork and tile work add inordinate amount of time. Even when it's copy and pasting bricks along the way, it still takes all your time up putting the brickwork on. But when it ends, when you get the finished product, that's what makes it as well. It's all worth it at the end.
Yeah, and it's absolutely fantastic. So it's a lot of time to spend on a building. So yeah, to get this many buildings in the Kickstarter is just very, very generous. So once you've got it built, you sort of add it to the Kickstarter, and you're doing your Kickstarter somewhat on the fly. But I also noticed that unlike some other Kickstarters, the whole waiting 6 months and, maybe you'll get the goods, maybe you won't. Your Kickstarters, we get the models pretty quickly, don't we?
In every Kickstarter I've done, you've got your or not all your files. You've got the vast majority of files. As soon as our Kickstarter works is when it ends, within half an hour they try to charge your card. All this is totally out of my hands, by the way. This is just automated from their end. I have to wait 14 days before they pay me, which turns into 18 because it's 3 days bank transfer time. So you wait 18 days before I see a penny from a Kickstarter after the end. But initially what happens, they charge your card. 90% of cards charge because people are ready. Some people, it's timed in between paydays and stuff, so it might fail initially. Some overseas have to manually say, yes, pay it, because the banks don't like overseas payments. But basically, I can see who's paid and who hasn't paid. It doesn't matter if you haven't paid. Some people who don't pay, and I always say, don't give me your money if you're struggling. Don't give me, if you can't afford it this month, come back to me later on if you want it. Don't break your bank to pay for a Kickstarter. But basically, I can see who's paid. So come the end of after 7 days, they try and take your money every 2 days, I'm told. But basically, after 7 days, any non-payers get dropped. And then another 7-day period before Kickstarter send the money. So after the 7 days, basically, I know everybody who's paid is going to pay. So I can send them files out to them people, and that's what I try to do. It's easy for me to wait for the 14, purely based on the fact that the emailing system within Kickstarter to send the files out, I have to manually do it each and every single backer until they've dropped. Once they've dropped, I can do it en masse. But if I do it en masse beforehand, I would be sending the files out to the people who haven't paid as well. It's something I've asked them to try and change to make things quicker. But going back to what you said, the aim, I think I've probably delivered 99% of all my Kickstarters. There's a couple of files here, there, dotted about. I know what they are. They just don't work at the moment. I've got to redesign some of them completely. There's an aeroplane in one of the Apocalypse, the big airplane. It just won't print. So if I give it you just won't print it anyway. So I won't give you something that won't work, even if it means waiting a bit longer. But you've got hundreds of stuff to be getting on with in the meantime. And if you are desperate, get in touch with me and I'll try and get it done as soon as possible. Faults, anybody comes to me with a fault. Most faults these days are easily fixed in 3D Builder. But faults, if someone comes to me with a fault, I'll try and fix it there and then and have the thing reloaded up on the site straight away. I don't like faults. But basically, my delivery times, the aim is from this point onwards, with the theme ones coming up and with this one, because this one's all inclusive and been included from the start, there hasn't been much for me to do. So it's all ready to go. So the aim is for this, it's all delivered after 2 weeks tops. All delivered and ready, and finished, ready for you guys to go and print. And the next one as well, like I say, the Kelly's Ears, I've dropped it a couple of times. That the same again. It's a theme one. Once it's done, it's all ready to go because it's all inclusive. No stretch goals on the way, no adding to it along the way because it's all there, ready. Like I say, I could have split this current one down into stretch goals, but I just thought, no, let's get it all included. This is what you get, all included. Enjoy, and I'll get it ready for you in the meantime while we're waiting, so that it's good to go as soon as it ends. And that's how I'm going to try and work it. There'll always be one or two designs that become a pain in the butt, as I'll say, and refuse to print as they are. I'll have to work on them, but 99% of all Kickstarters have been delivered and will be delivered in the future.
That's fantastic. I love the idea of while your wallet's still hurting, you can get the goods and get going, get printing, and get that warm feeling coming over as you enjoy what you've actually purchased. I really love that much more than waiting 6 months or a year, or maybe never getting your stuff, as is happens sometimes on Kickstarter?
Because I don't get much time and to print for myself, I've actually only ever bought into an aerial miniature base Kickstarters myself, and even now, I won't name them, but even now, when I bought 6 or 7 months ago, I got an email this weekend. The latest 3 have been released and ready for you to download, and I'd forgotten I even had it. You know what I mean? I don't want to be that. I don't mind the odd one. I do mind it, but I can put up with the odd one of mine taking a while to get ready and get out there. But in the meantime, you've got 50, 60, 40, 50, 60 designs to be getting on with, while you maybe wait for that one that wasn't key anyway. It's just part of the Kickstarter.
Great stuff. So you've mentioned Kelly's Heroes a couple of times. So
I might have done.
We've got to go there. So Kelly's Heroes, firstly, I love that movie. I mean, it's just a classic movie. And it's got quite a bit of history with it, where it was shot in some of those obscure Eastern European places where they were still using Sherman tanks in the late 1960s as their main battle tank, hand-me-downs from World War II. So that's why they shot it over there. But what made you decide to go that?
Again, people asking. When I did the on my Facebook page, when I did the Private Ryan, like I said, was born out of an happy accident, just came along, and that gave me the idea to theme some of the future Kickstarters, heavily theme them just along one topic. And people mentioned Kelly's Heroes, and I can't remember the exact name. I think it's Virinazda or something like that in Croatia. That's where the town was, where it was mostly set where the bank was. The bank didn't exist it didn't exist. That building didn't exist. The cafe over the road that he blows up was never a cafe. It might have been something one day, but as far as I know, it wasn't a cafe. So they're the bits they built for the film set that they could blow up. But the actual rest of the town exists. If you Google map it, it's all there. So I've done the town centre. So you've got all the buildings for the town centre of where the main action around the bank. That's included. There'll be and that'll be £20. That because it's themed, and it's £20 for that Kickstarter. There'll be a £15 bolt-on add-on for an extra 10 buildings if you want to go that way, which are all themed around the town. They're all based on buildings within the town, the outskirts of the town, etc. And that's an optional extra. So £35 maximum for the whole thing, but £20 if you just want the Kelly's Heroes set up. And that'll enable you to pretty much play out that part of that film, the main part, the attacking of the bank, etc., and the buildings that surrounded it.
That's fantastic. Can I give you my money now? Can I buy it now?
You can do, but I can't get the files yet.
Oh, man, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going to buy that one for sure, and excellent value as well. And when did you say that one was going to launch? It
will launch as soon. You can only run one Kickstarter at a time, they're allowed to run the time anyway, but it will launch. The aim is I'll launch it as soon as the next one finishes, but I don't know whether they'll let me until the money process has gone through for this one, or I've clicked everything that's been delivered. Because when you do a Kickstarter, I can click it's been delivered to each individual person. I think once I've done that, so once I've delivered the files, then I can start another one. So as soon as I can, I will. So at the latest, this one ends around about the end of February. So you're looking at the end of the first week in March at the latest, and the earliest probably. So if you say the 10th of March, that's roughly when we'll be going.
Fantastic. Looking forward to that. So the current Kickstarter then, you've already eclipsed your very modest goal for that.
Yeah.
And
that's just there. That just covers the time in getting the things together. If I make that, then I can walk away and think, yeah, okay, and everything would go into the web shop then, and you make your money, you make your sales over time on it. But initially, my initial goal is always that's made it worth, that's covered my time, if you see what I mean.
So that's got 10 days to run as we record this. So we're recording this on the 15th of February, 2021. And obviously, if you're listening to this in 3030, then it's going to be all over. But you'll be able to go to the website and buy the individual files there from the website. So I'll give you the details on that after. But that's 10 days to go. So depending on your time zones and how all that works and where you are, you're looking around about the 25th, 26th of February to finish that. And so that's Well Buildings does American Civil War, the Alamo, and the Generic West, and the paddle boats, and the Dice Tower, and just about everything else you can possibly think of for US. So
I think there's a kitchen sink in there as well somewhere. There might be a kitchen sink somewhere along the line.
There must be. That's an incredible set of stuff, and just so beautifully made as well. So jump on that if you are. If you're not, and if you're like Dan and myself, mainly focused on World War II, which a lot of the guys that listen to this podcast are bolt action players, then definitely check out the previous Kickstarter, which can still be purchased through the web store. That's the one with the Saving Private Ryan set in, and also very exciting to get that insight into the new one. Kelly's Heroes coming to a 3D printer near you very soon for the reasonable price of £20, did you say?
It'll be £20 buying, and that'll get you the town centre. And if you want I've done 10 extra buildings. 5 will be intact and 5 ruined, and there'll be just an optional extra if you want them.
Fantastic. Great stuff. All right, tell me what I've already dug out of you what your next project is, so I'm feeling very, very happy about that. What have you got on the horizon? What's floating your boat for the next project coming up? Do you have some ideas, or are you just concentrating on what's going on now?
I've got to admit, my favourite is sci-fi to do as design, because you've got the freedom to do whatever you want. Sometimes you just start with a shape and turn it into a ship or a craft or a building. So I've always liked that side of it, just the ability to just put anything on. You can put, an air conditioning unit here, a pipe there, and you can work that way. So I've been doing a prison setup at the minute. So I will go back to sci-fi. I will go back to World War II always, as long as I can find stuff to do. And that's why we're going theme now. So it'll be smaller, cheaper Kickstarters, slightly less in them, but heavily themed around a certain point. So, say, for example, I'm just putting this out the air, by the way, Villas Bocage. I'll do Villas Bocage. So you get the whole town centre, Villas Bocage. Kelly's Heroes, you get the whole setup for that. Some Italian towns as well I'd like to do. But basically, these ideas will come from you guys out there telling me what you want to play. It's pointless me doing Nuneaton, where I live, town centre. There was no battle fought in Nuneaton town centre, so I would never do it. But if people come to me and say, this is where a battle took place, it make a good setting, then it'll be done if possible. So that's how I work. But like I say, I won't go back to fantasy only on tiny individual scales, just for the shop, individual buildings, just to put in the web shop. And I probably won't go back to Apocalypse for the foreseeable future. So it's mainly around, I'd like to add some more modern nowadays type settings, and I'd like to do some alternative World War II ending type stuff. What happened if this happened? But for the moment, focus is on World War II and sci-fi. Like I say, I'm on my own. I do this myself, so I can't. I want to do everything, but I can't.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. Well, if you go and have a listen to this podcast called Valhallagames Podcast, if you have a look and listen to episode 3, you'll hear a story about where the British airborne parachuted into Sicily, and where the German Fallschirmjäger parachuted into Sicily within 24 hours of each other. Neither of them knew that the other one was there.
Right.
And a battle ensued, which was very, very interesting. So that's something that Dan and I are playing at the moment. So if you feel that you're wanting to do some Italian stuff, well, we'd love some Sicilian stuff.
I'm already interested in that already. I'll be Googling that today.
All right. Great stuff. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you for your time tonight. Where can people find you? Where can they find the web store and the Kickstarter and that type of thing?
The web store, there's an old one, which is a Wix site. If you go to that one, don't bother. It's defunct now, although for some unknown reason it's still accessible, although it don't work. So the new one is wowbuildings.net, so www.wowbuildings.net. That's where the shop is. I'd love to be able to keep it more up to date with news and stuff, but I just haven't got time. So if you want to keep up to date, come and join us on our Facebook page. Type in Wow Buildings in the search on Facebook. Ask to join the group. As long as you're into wargaming and you've got some art, you don't have to ask questions. I'll just say yes to you. If you want to offer me nude pictures and stuff like that, grateful as I am, that's not for our page. They go to a separate page called the blocked page. But basically, if you're into wargaming, that's where I am on an hourly, daily basis. I'm posting the Kelly's Hero stuff's all on there. To whet your appetite with. You can go and have a look at it. All my work in progresses, all my ideas. It's where people come as well to say, hey, this file ain't working. I'm on it, fix it, and then I post up, try it now. All that sort of stuff. That's where I'm accessible all the time. You can email me at wowbuildings@hotmail.com. But basically, the Facebook page is the quickest and most efficient way of getting in contact with me. I have got the Kickstarter email, but I tend to keep that just for Kickstarter, so I won't give that one out. It's start getting complicated. So the wowbuildings.net, wowbuildings@hotmail.com, or wowbuildings on Facebook. Come and join us there, and you'll get enough of me there to satisfy you, I think.
Okay, for sure. What I'll do is I'll put all those links in the show notes, and I'll also put the link direct to the previous Kickstarters, which are, I think, all available still on the web store.
All still available, yeah. I'm not sure if they're all on the web store, but if you come to me, they're all available.
Right, okay. And so that's a great place to see those huge scrolling lists of fantastic photos, one after the other. So thank you so much for coming on. Really, really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the buildings that I purchased off you that I'm printing out now as we speak, and I'm looking forward to building up a new table just based on your buildings, and I'll be jumping on with some of those Kickstarters for sure. Thanks very much, Paul.
Just before we go, I'll just add one thing that's maybe get out there because I get asked this a lot. Settings on printers. I design everything that will just print on normal settings on Cura. Cura's not the cutter that we use here. So I don't design things. If you want to have fancy settings and really fine and everything, they should work. But I design them to work on the basic settings on the theory that if they work on the basic settings, they'll work on everything else. So it's a question I've asked a lot. I haven't got no fancy settings. You alter the temperature to suit your PLA or the room your printer's in. But other than that, I don't alter like super fine, all that sort of stuff. That's if you want to do that. Everything should print on just your normal settings for your printer, on any printer as well. People ask me, will they work on this printer and that printer? But pretty much FDM printers have all the same technology, so they should work on every printer.
Yeah, certainly the prints that I've done, I've had no issues with, and they look absolutely fantastic, very crisp and clean, and they just look really great. I can't say enough about them. Thank you, Paul. I'll let you get on with the rest of your day.
Yeah, no problems.
I look forward to seeing some miniatures coming down a download real soon.
Yeah, so if the Kelly's Heroes, it's all been posted on the site. So if you want to, if I've whetted your appetite, go and have a look there, and it'll get even wetter.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
See you next time.
And you. Thank you very much.
Well, there you go. I hope you found that interesting. Thanks very much for listening. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at valhallagames.net/YouTube, or the blog itself at valhallagames.net. If you have any interesting ideas for people that I could interview or content that you'd like to see coming up, please let me know. The show notes for this episode will be available at valhallagames.net/EP20, all lowercase, no spaces. Look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks very much. Bye now.